Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to my home studio, and welcome to episode 65 of Luthiers Question Time, a live stream show where I answer your questions on guitar building in general and life and luthiery and business and no holds are barred, essentially. I think I'm looking at the wrong camera. Am I looking at the wrong camera? Where are we? Aha! I was looking at the wrong camera. Technical difficulties are now over and done with, thank you very much. So, yeah, we are here. I answer your questions. It gets turned into a podcast that goes live on all of your podcast platforms of choice if you would rather just listen. And some would say that that is a better choice, just listening to my voice rather than having to look at my face. But we don't go there. It hurts. It just hurts so much. Super chats will 100% be answered. It's the best way to guarantee that I'm actually going to see the question. It flashes up and it stays on my screen forever, whereas the general chat flips past fairly rapidly. So we've got a bunch of us in here. Ian Bonjour, Casey, Kevin Harvey, Jeff's Guitars, Crevery is in. Robert R, Tom Woods. Robert R was giving me hassle for not streaming last time. I'm glad to see you here, sir. Adam to remember, Kevin Harvey, I've said him already. Luther Builds, Sun Bass, Tutankhamun, a bunch of us who are regulars, and then a few names that I don't recognise as well. So welcome to those new adventurers. And on we go. The first super chat for the evening is coming from Cliff Evans. Thank you very much, Cliff, who says, "Hi Ben, if possible, please could you do a video of how to separate a glued neck from the body?" I sincerely hope that I never have to do that. It's not a fun process. I can, however, talk about it. Okay, if I ever have to do that, I will film it. Guarantee. Now, we're going to assume that you're talking about an electric guitar, for starters, because that's generally what I'm known for at the moment, although we've got some interesting stuff happening on the main channel soon. Basically, we had a student in our school have to do this recently, and he actually managed to do it while completely keeping the full use of the guitar neck. He didn't have to scrap anything. He didn't have to rebuild the neck. He didn't tear out any grain in the body, etc. So it worked very well. And what happened there was either it's the use of steam and heat and warmth. So you can warm up the neck using an iron or something like that on a relatively low heat. You don't want to burn it. You don't want to warp the wood in any way, shape or form if you can avoid it. Keep everything wet. You don't want to dry it down too much because you might end up with a crack or two. Once the whole area is warm, and you can use, if it's an unfinished instrument, i.e. you haven't got lacquer on there, you can use a heat gun gently around the area that you want to loosen the glue. And if you're lucky, doing that, building up the temperature in that area over time, with the judicious addition of large amounts of force, you'll start to feel the joint going. Okay, now if you don't have any movement there, at that point it's necessary to get a spatula of some sort, and preferably one that's relatively flexible and thin, that will get into the area that you're talking about, the glue joint, etc., without necessarily ripping the grain. Now, I've done this before, taking fretboards off and heated up the palette knife. I said spatula, didn't I? Got food on my mind, always food on my mind. And heated that up, and as you're going down the fretboard, if you're not very, very, very careful, you can go under the grain on the neck or under the grain on the fretboard, and instead of separating the glue joint, which is what you want, you actually start separating the piece of wood from itself. And that is not fun and not ideal, so just bear that in mind. Keep a close eye on what you're doing. Steam is the next bet. You can, on the local global online retailer of your choice, find steam cleaning devices relatively inexpensively. And the cheap ones are horrifically messy and water goes everywhere. But remove a fret or two, or if you fancy it, you can do the same thing by taking out a dot inlay or two. Drill through the dot inlay. Now, if you do a dot inlay, you've got probably 6 millimeters to hide what you're doing. So you could drill a 5 millimeter hole, no problem whatsoever. And if that goes down through to the same depth as the glue joint, you can then take your steam device and directly inject hot water through the inlay hole down to where you need it, and that will spread out through the wood, and that will also start the delaminating process and start loosening up the wood glue. Now, this is all assuming that you've used anaphylactic shock. Flippin' hell. Can you tell I've not been speaking to pretty much anybody today? Alkaline, aliphatic resin. Aliphatic resin, wood glue, or just standard woodworking white glue. Anything, many other glues don't work. Obviously, you're not going to use super glue for a neck joint because that doesn't do well under shocks. It would just shatter. But people have been seen to be using epoxy, which sucks, and various other things. So it works for wood glue and it works for hide glue. And basically doing that, injecting the steam is one thing. Now, finally, most of those cheap steamers do not come with a needle device. I have in the past had to mess around by adding literal large bore hypodermic needles, which I filed the end off to make them flat, and taping them on or gaffer taping them on to the device. It's not pretty, but it works. All right, there we go. So that was a chunky question that came in before the chat even began. Alrighty, so let's have a look. Guitar Addicts Workshop is in. Crazy McDermott's ready for GGBO. GGBO announcement. I was hoping to film that today. I'm going to film that over the next couple of days, and that announcement will be going live soon. I'm so excited. I'm now finally 100% happy with what I had planned. I've made some changes. Oh, yes, I have. Robert R. says he was glad to see a new video on the redo of my daughter's guitar. Ben, the carbon fiber scratch plate really brought it together. That it did. There's a lot more to do still, but I am hoping for, if not the final episode, then definitely the next episode. And definitely the penultimate, if not the final, on Saturday next week. So we'll go from there. Okay, a few questions. Casey McDermott has come in and said, Ben, when designing from scratch, how do you math thickness and height for fretboard, pickups, bridge, etc.? Do you need the hardware you are using first? Not necessarily, and I don't math anything. I am very, very, very anti-working things out mathematically beforehand. I am more of a geometry person. Geometry? No, that's math. I am more of a, this thing is physically this big. Draw it physically on a life-size piece of paper, and then you can see what's going on. We physically seeing it is much better than potentially missing a decimal point. And we all know how that ends, don't we? Okay, so what I will do is I will draw the string. The string is the starting point. Boom. Bridge to nut. Done. No worries. I then say I want roughly 1.5 millimeters, say 2 millimeters from the bottom of my string, which is the line I've drawn, to the top of the frets. I then draw where the top of the frets is. I say frets are generally about 1.5 millimeters from there. So the top of the fretboard is actually 3 millimeters from the bottom of the string, give or take. And it's that you need to know. So the fret size you've got, etc., makes a difference. From there, you draw your fretboard on, and you either need to know the size of the that the fretboard is going to be, say 6 millimeters thick, or actually have it so you can measure it. And with that drawn in place, then you can say, okay, here's my nut, here's my bridge position. Now, whether you've got your bridge, let's say it's a Tune-o-matic bridge, whether you've got it or not, most online stores that are selling these things will have those dimensions there for you in a nice pretty diagram. So, hey, I'm going to buy this ubiquitous Goto Tune-o-matic. It is 14 millimeters high. I think I'm putting that figure. Don't quote me on this. I'm giving you advice, not actual information. And you want to have another, say, 3 millimeters worth of play. So you want the base of your Tune-o-matic, after you've taken into account the thumb wheels, to be at least 3 or 4 millimeters higher than the top of the fretboard, of the body. That then gives you the height of the top of the body, and you want to draw a line from that height to where you want the plane of the body to meet your neck. Now that is generally at the 16th fret where the neck joins. But if you've got a carved top, you can do some jiggery-pokery and go from there. But in the end, draw it, draw it, draw it. And yes, if you have got the bridges, etc., it's always better to start with the hardware before you get to the build. For many, many years, I couldn't afford to have the hardware. So I guesstimated or worked off diagrams and standard knowledge. Every now and then, that came back and it bit me. And even now, I tend to only drill the holes for hardware after the finishing is done. It's just the way it is. So yeah, I'm looking at the shred guitar. Shred. I'm not looking at shred. I'm looking at Boba Fett guitar over there, and I have not yet drilled the holes for the trim. And I'm hoping to finish that in the live stream on the main channel tomorrow. So finish that. We'll see. Okay, so yeah, thank you, Casey. That was a good question. I have made a couple of videos on the main Crimson Guitars channel. There is at least one entitled something along the lines of working out a through neck string break angle or something like that. And that goes through this whole process, but with imagery. Alrighty. Evening, Tutankhamun. Joel Shapiro says hello. Sunbase says hello from Cleveland, Ohio. Oh, Jeff's Guitars, hello to all you sawdust makers. South Wales, Adam to Remember is in South Wales and says, yes, it's been throwing it down here all day. Me too. I was planning on coming down to the workshop and it was just a little bit too damp from there to here. And I was just like, you know what? Day off. Day off. Okay. Snow in New England. Tommy Transplant says, hello from Mardi Gras. Awesome. Now, we have got a question here from PJ Woodwork. Says, next fretboard might be of plum tree. Should I oil it or varnish it? Okay, plum and pearwood and apple all make very, very good fretboards. It's a lovely material. I personally oil. I oil it. It's dark enough that it's not going to get particularly dirty over time, and you should be able to clean it fairly easily. But it's not necessary to lacquer it or varnish it. But yeah, it's one of those things. If it's not dark enough and you want it darker and you want an oil finish, because many people vastly prefer the feel of an oil finish on a fretboard, then yeah, you can stain it and there is no problem. A lot of people feel that it is somehow naughty or dirty or wrong to stain a fretboard. It isn't. It's just wrong to do that and then not tell the person who's buying it, because in 10, 15 years time you're going to start going through the stain. So stain it and send them a little bit of the stain and you'll be all right. It's not naughty, honest. You could also use tannins. Many woods will with a mixture of stuff and stuff. I've got the word varnish in my head and that is not wrong. Vinegar. With vinegar, Are we watching the steady decline of my just sanity and ability to talk? I think we might be. But yeah, anyway, vinegar and wire wool, let that sit for in a closed jar for, say a week, and then paint that onto your plum and fretboard, and that could actually darken that down quite nicely, and also a little bit deeper, I think, than a stain would, generally. Mr. Waffles with another question says, suggestions for an opaque finish in a very humid area. It rarely drops below 60%, so nitro is difficult without a paint booth, which I can't afford. Okay, so first of all, paint booth, you could potentially, I have seen people do paint booths on a budget, utilizing literally a garden, a frame that you would put around your plants. They've got a little shelf. You just take the shelf out and you've got this big plastic thing and just spray in there. They're relatively inexpensive. Actually putting up a small tent is also an option. But that being said, if you don't want to, well, that being said, even though I have a full spray booth, I still avoid nitro. Nitro is, I don't get the hype. I don't particularly like it. Short of the fact that you can age it quite nicely, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I tend to use 2K finishes. I would go outside on a nice day and use rattle cans if you want a hard wearing finish. Try and make it a relatively dry day if at all possible, or even stand in your doorway, take it straight out, spray it just outside, making sure you're not next to your neighbour's car. I haven't actually done that. And use that to a rattle can finish. There are rattle can finishes now available where they actually have 2K, 2-part lacquer in them. I've not experienced one myself, but I've been told that they exist. And you push a button or something and that pierces the bottom, mixes all the stuff, and you end up with a harder wearing varnish than you would normally get in the rattle cans. But yeah, many people have used them, normal ones, fine. If you are after a finish that is applied by hand, then you can't go wrong with guitar finishing oil. We obviously make it at Crimson Guitars. We sell a hell of a lot of it. It's a fantastic finish, and it works very well, whether it's relatively humid or not. For a long time, I was working in a workshop that did not have humidity control, and yeah, the average humidity in there was actually in the 70s in general. And I then took the instruments and put it in the timber room overnight. Try not to sneeze in your ears right now, people. Say thank you in the comments. I misread the question. You said opaque finish. Rattle cans. Just rattle cans, rattle cans, rattle cans. I think that's your best bet. You can stain guitar finishing oil as well, if you need to. Now run some tests. It works very well with most of our stains, and it just does not work at all with some of them. So guitar finishing oil, put in a little bit of a few drops of stain, or Stunning Stains shots, for example, and crack on. Okay. JS Trucking and Guitar says, afternoon, did you forget to send out the alert? I never got the set reminder link. I did not forget to send anything out. That's automatically or auto-magically done by YouTube. But I think that if I'm coming to understand that they don't send those alerts out all at the same time when wow, my batteries are charged. Woohoo. That alert is not sent out auto-magically the second I schedule the stream. They have some algorithm and they do it. And it's most annoying because I heard of somebody the other day who only had the alert for the other live stream 4 hours after it was finished, which was a bit silly on YouTube's part, I must say. But anyway, I'm going to start scheduling these a lot earlier. The problem is if I schedule a stream early and then decide randomly that I want to, in the meantime, do another one, which has happened, then the whole thing just gets all kinds of messed up. So yeah, we've got to do that. George Davis says he watched my sharpening video. First, very good. Thank you. Second, I haven't seen you look so happy and alive as you did during the video. Thank you very much. It was really fun because I had my wife as well, and she was running the computer, and it's not. Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying working with her in these few periods where she does that. So actually, here we go. These are Eneloop Pro batteries that you guys suggested I should get. So I'm going to have a good test of those during tomorrow's live stream on the main channel, which is going to be cracking on with this guitar. Funnily enough, on Valentine's Day, Tanya probably won't be here for most of it. But anyway, it is what it is. Okay. Sporadic Amnesic, which is a name that I love very much, says, hey Ben, when I saw you at the UK Guitar Show in London back in 2019, which I think was the very last guitar show that I've actually attended. Sorry, this is a bit loud. Let's put that in the right way. I asked you if you'd ever try building a longbow. Any further thoughts on that? Funny enough, I remember that. We're good. Okay, so yes, I have seriously considered building a longbow. I even tried doing one once a long time ago for the kids just to mess around, and it shattered spectacularly. I could do it, my workshop could do it, but somehow really does feel very naughty when I'm in my workshop and I'm not working on either a guitar or a video. And I don't think anybody would be interested in a video of me making a longbow. I don't think. So yeah, I mean, I used to really want to. Really thought that would be cool to do. But yeah, in the end, the 2 or 3 days I spent doing that could be spent doing something cool and funky and fun with a guitar. And my path is fairly set at this point, I think. Okay. Phil Gerke says, well, Ben, I've accepted my fledgling plane addiction and I'll no longer be following your advice on what I need because I want all of them. I blame you. I accept your blame. I am happy to accept your blame. I am overjoyed, in fact, that there is another one of us out there. And my mission is on the way to being accomplished. Yeah. Says the man who is seriously considering trying to cut down a little bit. Yeah. There's planes here that I just don't use at all. I mean, this plane here, that's just a flex more than anything else. I don't know. We'll get there. All right, Luthier Build says, Ben, I have a batch of shirts on the way that say, in Rod we Truss. What size do you want? I'll mail you one for free. You know it's cool. Ah, ha, 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 he says. Seriously, I am well, UK XL, whatever that means, and I would love to wear that. And thank you very much. So yeah, XL, because it is what it is. There we go. Sweet Tea Guitars. Hey, Sweet Tea, how you doing? I haven't caught up. Wow, I haven't caught up with your build for a while. Hey Ben, have you ever used any Oregon myrtle wood tops? If not, would you fancy a set? Absolutely. And no, I haven't. Absolutely, I would. Trying to get you a box ready, but want it to be things you like. I've never used Oregon myrtle, and yeah, basically, surprised me. I'm trying to unpack the things you like comment. There are very, very few woods that are traditionally used or are sold as things to be used in guitars that I don't like. Even things like Wenge and Purple Heart have their place, as much as I avoid them. But you know, it is what it is. Thank you very much. Okay, Rob Phoenix has come in with the super chat of the evening, £20. Thank you very much, Rob. I seriously appreciate it. Says, advice and thoughts needed. I've been asked to consider making a small batch of guitars, 4 or 5, for a local established music shop, based on showing them my latest build. Any pitfalls I should consider? It's all your fault. That is even better than people with fully acknowledged playing addictions, in my opinion. So yeah, seriously, congratulations. Okay, so pitfalls and problems when building instruments for a shop. First of all, they expect to be able to make 50% on top. In general, you might get a better deal, you might be friends with these people. They might ask for 60, in which case tell them to go somewhere far away from your workshop. You've probably heard me say it before, but the last 5% of what you do is 100% the first thing that a customer will see. And you've got to concentrate on that. I noticed that there's a pound symbol there. We'd be happy to talk to you if there's any help that you need in a more sort of physical way. In fact, in all seriousness, and this, I don't want to say this because it sounds like I'm now saying, ooh, there's money to be made, I'm trying to sell you something. But we do offer the CNC, we make kit guitars, okay? So with our CNC machines, we could help you do some of the batch work in this to make it cheaper in the long run, so that having to give 50% off to a shop doesn't hurt quite so much. Now that being said, doing it yourself using templates and routers and batching out 4 or 5, it's something I've done in the past. It's something I really enjoyed because instead of what you now watch me do, it's relatively mindless. Here's your template, glue your template on, route, take the template off, glue the template on, route. And, you know, by the end of the day, you're absolutely broken, absolutely knackered, but you've got, you know, 4 or 5 guitars that were nowhere near guitars, actually looking like instruments at that point. So it's what you do. Seriously consider the final finishing. Be brutally honest with yourself with regards to the fretwork and the playability. Give them to people and say, hey, I know you're my friend, but please be brutal. Please tell me the truth here. You know, can I sing, really? And listen to them. And if you've got a guitarist who plays and says, actually, you know, you're 99% of the way there, but I think the nut on this one's a little bit high or a little bit sharp on the corner of your palm, for example, things like that. Listen to them. And it took me 15, 20 years to not get butthurt when people say they don't like my stuff. And now I say, thank you very much. And I go and I look at it myself with fresh eyes and think, he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. Not at all. And sometimes they're right. Where's my water? So yeah, that is the thing. Okay. The shop knows their customers. They will know the price point that will sell in their shop. There are some shops that only deal in 500 quid or less, and you can't make that by hand. You probably can't make 1500 quid or less by hand, not and have good quality. Hell, 1500 quid or less, handmade in the UK by you, to then be sold at 1500 quid in a shop, means that you're only making 750, 800 pounds for the guitar, and the average good guitar has about 400 or 500 pounds worth of hardware. So the real pitfall is, do not, whatever you do, undervalue your time. Just don't do it. Just because he says, I'm going to sell more of them at, £1,000, doesn't mean you have to sell out at less than you're worth. Say, no man, look, my guitars are worth £2,500, and if you don't think they're worth £2,500, what can I do to make them worth £2,500? And if you don't have the customers for £2,500 guitars, then I can't make guitars for you, sorry. Or you can come to us and we can CNC bits and pieces out for you and try and do it at more of a budget. But yeah, it's one of those things. Local established music shop. Do the bare minimum that you can while keeping the quality up there. For a full custom build, yeah, go and spend however much money. Hey, I bought those Seymour Duncan, all the ones with the silver wire, supremely expensive. I couldn't hear any major difference really. The customer wanted them, he was happy to spend the money, fine. But in a normal build, you cannot beat a good set of Seymour Duncans, for example, or even more budget ones. Sound great, look okay, and do the job. So do what you can to make it great, but don't spend huge amounts more than you have to in order to make a guitar that will sell in the shop. Most guitars in most guitar shops have pickups that cost the manufacturer 10 or 15 quid, really. Fight me in the comments, I'm probably wrong. Let's say 30 or 20 or 25 or 30 quid a pickup, really. But anyway, Hive Mind. Is there anything else that Rob needs to think of that I've missed at this point? Okay, the super chats have kept on rolling in, and I'm spending a lot of time. This is going well, thank you very much. I'm spending a lot of time on each question, so here we go. Hey Ben, what polishing compounds do you use at Crimson? That is Jeff Wickberg. Okay, so in the next video with my daughter's guitar, you will see me using it. I'm just going off camera to quickly have a look. Yeah, this is the stuff. Premium finish paste. This is the P275, which is a number 4, and it is by Menzerna. These people, it's incredible. So I use the Menzerna stuff, and then I finish off with Crimson's ultra mega versatile multi-use guitar polish. I love that name because I came up with it myself. Pretentious arsehole that I am. Okay, so yeah, the combination of those two things does very well. There are even finer polishes if you want. Polishing Jasmine's guitar up was sphincter tighteningly frightening because of all of the edges on all of the holes, and scary. But anyway, and I also kept on putting my fingers in the holes while I was on the buffing wheel, and if it had grabbed the guitar, I would be minus fingertips. It was a, don't do that, Ben. Don't do that, Ben. Ben, don't do that. Kind of a moment. But anyway, there we go. Sweet Tea Guitars says, I meant things you don't normally have access to that easily. I'm fairly sure I'm aware of what you like. Should have made that clear. No, it's all good, Sweet Tea. Yeah, I don't, pretty much anything that you guys have in the States, I don't have ready access to generally, and haven't, don't walk past and go, ooh, I want some of that. So yeah, there's all sorts of bits and pieces that are great. I've only used Buckeye Bill once, for example. We now have actually bought some fantastic looking wood that it turns out is redwood that was grown in the UK. But yeah, before that I would have said, you know, redwood or quilted maple. Like, we don't get much of that over here. There's all sorts of stuff, but don't break the... Sounds like somebody's whistling outside. That's freaky. Yeah, don't break the bank, mate. Yeah, interesting non-standard stuff is always fun. So yeah, cool. Phil Gerke says, will the colour of Purdue fade over time? Sadly, most of the times, yes. I did a test using Purdue dust in my grain filler on ash, and I really liked the results. Any concerns there? Okay, no. So Purdue dust in grain filler will stay really dark. Fine. That's not going to fade, no. In fact, Purdue shouldn't fade. It depends on what the grain filler is made out of. But in general, I think it's going to stay fairly dark. What happens is the dust takes on the moisture of the glue and changes its colour, and it's dark for good. Whether it stays that sort of same vibrant red kind of a colour, I don't know. But I suspect that it's not red. I suspect it's more sort of dark browny black at this stage. Now, Purdue in general fades from that bright red to a muddy brown over time, unless you've got a UV protective finish on the instrument. So there is that. Dusty Dark Horse has also come in with a super chat, and I really appreciate all of this, you guys. Says the local cabinet maker has been ruined by cheap yet heavy and brittle particle board. Are there any comparable problems in the guitar market? The local cabinet market. I thought you said maker. I knew there was something. I knew I'd made a mistake there somewhere. Has been ruined by cheap yet heavy and brittle particle board. Are there any comparable problems in the guitar market? So, I mean, there was a certain issue a couple of years ago when every single wood in the Dulbergia species, i.e. Everything from African blackwood to East Indian rosewood or Indian rosewood, just anything in that sort of family of woods was made illegal to trade in, and there was all sorts of nasty issues with it, in spite of the fact that many of the species in that genus family, same thing, I think, are actually abundantly available, and I think the only result from that was that a lot of poor people suddenly had no income where they were expecting it, and that really sucks. That has since been fixed and is no longer an issue, but that was a big problem. No, really no. I think you can go back another 20, 30, 40 years and find out that they're cheap but nasty guitars coming in, but that isn't something that's really really affected us at all. We now are fully aware that you can actually get a 500 quid guitar that's perfectly fine as an instrument, and if you're willing to put in another 500 quid in parts and hardware and have gone and learned how to do a good level crown and polish, etc., then yeah, I mean, you have a guitar that's almost as good as something that costs 3 or 4 times that from an average factory. That is, he says, backpedaling furiously. My guitars, of course, are 100 million times better than anything made in a factory in the Far East. Okay. Sweetie says he will send me some quilted maple. I will use it in a guitar, and thank you very much. You're a good man. Okay, now. Hold on. I think there's some messages in the back here. No, come on. Where is this? Oh, some questions. Okay. Now, okay. Okay, if you have not yet checked our Discord, the Crimson Guitars Discord, there should be a link in the description. It's a very cool little growing community of people who talk about guitar building, so yeah, check that out. Rocket Punk says, quick suggestion that comes to mind for the shop, why not adding a new inlay powder that would be emerald to go alongside ruby, gold and sapphire? That's not the powder, that is the grain enhancing filler. But yeah, I think that's I forgot my notebook today. I think that's a really good idea. Okay, Crazy Steve 190 says, will Crimson's brick and mortar premises also stock fret wire, truss rods, nut blanks, alkaline, star bond, etc.? I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy, and choices for luthier supplies and equipment seem profoundly limited in actual shops compared to the usual online fare. All of that, literally every single one of those things is available in the Crimson Guitars shop right now, and you are more than welcome to come and visit in person and browse. So yes, go for it. We would love to see you. Emerald grain filler. That really should be entirely possible. And those grain fillers, as you saw, can also be used as opaque finishes, as per the earlier question. Okay. Now, okay, jigsaw blade I used on my cabinet grade birch plywood for plate joining jig parts, and yes, I did use the masking tape trick, but it still had horrible tear out. Okay. It's a multi-toothed blade, it looks relatively fine, and I don't understand why you're having issues with it. I think the problem is probably the material rather than the thing. JS Trucking says, I skipped over his last super chat. I didn't do that on purpose. Where are we? Or did I read it and then go on to something else? Because that happens sometimes. Dum-da-dum-da-dum. JS Trucking Guitars, afternoon, did you forget to send out the alert? No, I didn't skip over this, and I did answer that, but YouTube tends not to. JS Trucking. Oh, here we go. Can turtle wax be used as guitar polish? It is not a brand that I am aware of, but I think it is similar to something I've used in the past, and I've heard of it being used, so I don't see why not. Also, there is a picture in the WhatsApp lineup that goes with my plywood question last week, which I've just hit. So there we go. I think turtle wax is a slightly abrasive wax liquid that you can use on your car, if I'm not wrong. And yeah, that should work perfectly fine as a guitar polish for a guitar that has got a hard varnish finish. And yeah, it should be fine. Most products for use on cars are actually fairly ubiquitous. Guitar varnish is car varnish. It is. So if it works for one, it works for the other in general. Okay, look at that. I have just got to the end of the super chats, so we're good. 150 people watching, only 63 likes. Come on, people. Okay. Thoughts on the Ghost Acoustophonic Piezo system on Nebula 2? Was it your suggestion of the clients? And what are your thoughts on it? Will standard piezo system be just as good? No, a standard piezo system is never as good as the Ghost Acoustophonic. They really know what they're doing. Okay, and it's not necessarily just in the quality of the piezo system, the piezos, etc., all of that. It is the preamp. The preamp is bulletproof. It is very well designed. It is very well made. I build Robert Fripp's guitars, or some of them at the very least. He is to guitars what I am to hand planes, And I have built, or we have built, many of his signature models for clients around the world. They all, for the last 15 years or so, have had the Ghost Acoustophonic MIDI and piezo system. They have almost all also had the Fernandez Sustainer system. We have had almost as many Sustainer systems break or just not work during the installation process as we have actually installed. It feels like that, at least. I've never had a problem with the Acoustophonic, apart from literally the most recent guitar that we built it with, and it turns out that there was an issue with one of the jumper leads internally, which was mind-blowing. So no, it's a particularly good system. It sounds particularly good, and I'm not saying there aren't equally nice ones out there, but I have not experienced any. So now, that being said, a standard piezo system should be fine. There's a law of diminishing returns in all of these things. If you've got a 50 quid preamp and a 150 quid preamp, but the 50 sounds okay to you, then go for it. The sort of extra 5 or 10% might not be worth an extra £100 to you, and to your clients. It's what I said to the gentleman selling guitars to shops. In a production instrument, unless you're using, no, I would still go for the Acoustophonic. I would, and I would use that fact in the marketing. We've got an Acoustophonic system in here. Okay, Inky Guitar says, Ben, I saw a guitar today have a headstock break, but the fretboard had split at the second fret as well. The fret came off. It's not worth fixing, but how would you go about repairing such an issue? I mean, it might be worth fixing. Film that and put it online, and it could be a fun one to do. Without imagery, I can't. It depends on the headstock break itself, but you're saying the whole fretboard came off. I would just glue it all back together as much as possible. Behind the neck, I would inlay in 2 or 3 pieces of wood across the break if necessary, especially if it's a sort of a shear break where you don't have much long grain to re-glue. And even so, you want some extra support glued in there. But every single neck break I've seen has had to have a slightly different method of attack to repair. So it's a difficult thing. It is indeed. Alexis Guitar says, hey Ben, can you please briefly explain how and when you'd opt for melamine finish? I hadn't heard of it before seeing Crimson's. What are the benefits? It's very quick, it's very thin, and it dries quite nicely, but what it does do is it builds up more than a guitar finishing oil or something like that. Not quite as much as the water-based lacquer. We really need to change that name. It's a varnish that we sell, but it's a different sort of thing. It also does not colour the finish in any way, i.e. the oil, for example, will give a timber a distinctly golden brown luster, which I love. Now, the melamine lacquer does not tend to do that. It tends to keep it bright, clean, and white and beautiful. So that's it. Now, the other issue is that you have to be very careful when you apply it. It dries incredibly rapidly. We're talking within 30 seconds or so. And if you, in your haste, drop melamine lacquer, a drip of it on top of other finish or previously dried layers, it will burn right through and leave a hole and a gap, and it's problematic to use, but it gives a really nice finish. And a few coats. We used melamine for many years on the tool handles for Crimson guitars, crowning files, and fret leveling files and things like that. So check it out. Disco Stew comes in and says, if they keep breaking, why use the Fernandez Sustainer and not the Sustainiac? Sustainiacs are rock solid, in my opinion. Okay, I often think that. And then I go on Sustainiac's website, snort through my nose in laughter at the 1990s website, and I just stop there and then. I can't, yeah. I've never actually got to the point of being able to purchase one online. And that's that. Maybe we should phone them up, but it just seems that a company that has a website that bad, let's see if they might have, I can't actually show you this. I haven't got the out, but yeah. Let's have a look. Yep. I think the website's actually better than the last time I saw it. Maybe. Oh no, it's an email order form. Here we go. We will shut down the week starting Tuesday, November the 23rd. We will not take any orders until after December 1st. This is the first thing you see on their homepage. This is just... yeah. It's terrible. We live in 2022. 2022, look at that. And this is what this website looks like. Maybe. I might be wrong. Anyway, hold on. Humour Case is my Spalted Elm Electroacoustic Jazzmaster Uke. Didn't work. Spalted wood isn't strong enough. Even with the epoxy and walnut back, was too cheap to buy. Cactus Juice setup. And yeah, I mean the Cactus Juice, the whole thing for a guitar body size thing is problematic. You don't give up on all spalted woods. As I said in your original question weeks ago, sometimes it's great, and sometimes the spalting has been caught soon enough. In other times, it can only be done with by flooding it with all sorts of chemicals and stuff, and then solidifying it and using it on a solid instrument. Hard luck that it hasn't worked for you. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Inky Guitar says, no, only the first 2 frets of the fretboard came off. The main issue is it's not financially worthwhile, but yeah, it could make a good video. Cool. Joe Black says, one-piece maple neck, i.e. with a skunk stripe, what? With a modern double expanding truss rod, yay or nay? Yeah, I mean, possible. Absolutely possible. There's no reason why not to. Okay, there's several reasons why not to. Most modern truss rods, the nut is 1 or 2 millimeters wider than the entire rest of the length of the truss rod. So your entire skunk stripe would either have to be narrow with a bit that pops out, and that would look weird, or it has to be the same width as the nut, if not wider, which means that you would then need to pack out the edges of the truss rod so it doesn't rattle along in there with veneer, or potentially do a stepped kind of a thing. So 3 or 4 millimeters in, you've got a really wide skunk stripe in comparison to the nice narrow skunk stripe that you're used to seeing on vintage Fenders, etc. And then that steps down in, so your truss rod's in a nice tight channel. I just think that it's a look that serves no real purpose. But if it's something that does it for you, then it does it for you, and you need to do it. Unless it's illegal. In which case, don't. Now. Titebond makes a great melamine glue. Melamine glue. Melamine glue. I shall check that out. Alrighty. What site is that? It's Sustainiac.com. Sustainiac.com. I can't believe it's still live. I can't believe it's still live. Hey, my website sucks. My website's not very good. But my website's like 2 years out of date, not 30. Rich Leathley says, just looked at that website. Holy hells, that's bad. Oh, wow, that website. What on earth is going on there? Adam to remember. Disco Stew's like, yep, it is that bad. So, okay. No. Okay. Queries, questions, comments, and criticisms. John Black says, would be interesting to see inside some of your hollow body stuff. A very dead horse, what a name, says, can confirm Sustainiac's website is awful and I didn't order one for that reason. I would like one, but it's nonsense. I mean, there's 146 people here and 101 likes, woohoo. And several of us now have avoided ordering from them because their website is so bad. Maybe we should just phone them up and say, hey, yo, hell, I could build them a free website. In fact, I would happily be a UK dealer for them because I have heard good things about the product. Fine. Sustainiac. Hi, Mr. Sustainiac. I spent a good 5 minutes last night taking the piss out of your website, but would you give me a good discount so I can retail your things? By the way, do you need a new website? I'll build you one. I could build... No, shop. Stop it. Okay, Adam to remember says the spacing on an uncut crimson kit for pre-cut string holes, 52.5mm. Honestly, I don't know. You will have to phone Crimson, is probably the best way to get a quick answer. Talk to Sam and he will tell you straight off. But that should be on the website. As much as anything else. So, yes, I need to fix my website. Bill says it's laughable. I couldn't believe it. George Davis says, Ben, have you seen the 2 videos that Jim Lil did on sustain and tone, debunking all the anal retentive thoughts on the subject? I did see the tone one, and unfortunately, I think it was him. I'm diabolical with names. The ways that he was doing it still have holes. If you're going to actually actively debunk it, you need to do it very, very, very carefully. If this is what I was thinking of, he ended up having the nut and the bridge bolted to a bench on either side of him, saying, well, there's no body. Of course there's a body. It's a mack of great big workbench on one side and a mack of great big workbench on the other. That's, you know, more wood than you normally have in a guitar. And saying, is there? So it was flawed, but going well. The other thing is the musician needs to be taken out entirely. I have to do a video. I have to do it properly. I'm interested in watching the sustain one because I haven't seen that. I only watched the tone one, so I'll check that out. Bill says there's a Sustainiac dealer in Devon. Is there now? Okay. Fabian says, where are my squirrels? They are off camera, looking over my shoulder now. There we go. Phew, 1 hour in and everything's slowed down a little bit. Okay. People are worried because the squirrel isn't that was supposed to happen. Okay, there needs to be one there. Oh. I suppose you could probably sit there. Let's go from there. Okay, there, that's for Robert R. Okay, so Joe, honestly, I would go for the second from the bottom, or probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. I would go for the 7th blade from the bottom. Try that. That's your baby. Max is telling him to get proper good quality ones as well, which could make a difference. And it definitely does make a difference. So there we go. Okay, feed me questions, people. Lisa, how you doing? I'm out of questions, so Luther Verbuild says the Staniac website is straight up Microsoft Paint. Lisa's keeping my mouth shut about the Crimson site, which is a hell of a lot better than it was, and will continue to be. We took your all of your information and questions. Okay. Franz Truter, thank you very much. This is a question. Comes and says, hi Ben and friends, how's it going? Stainless steel or nickel silver frets? Good quality nickel silver frets gets my vote every time. Now, there is a huge difference between good quality and bad quality nickel silver frets. There just is. A very good quality one is almost as hard as stainless steel, and they're perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Stainless steel adds a little bit of time to the process, say a further 10-15%, maybe even more. It takes longer, it's harder wearing on your tools, and you know, if a customer asks for one, I will, fine, no worries whatsoever. I don't even charge any extra. I don't think. I'm not in charge of quoting things up anymore. And but in general, we use very expensive, very good quality nickel silver, and they're perfectly fine. So there we go. JS Trucking Guitars is coming in with some fighting talk. Do you think tomorrow will be the last Boba Fret stream? I did this morning. I did when this stream started, and then I looked over at her, and I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. Now, there's not actually all that much to do. Maybe, but it's Valentine's Day. I'm not going till late in the evening, so we'll see. Okay, Luther Builds says, guitar finishing oil on Wenge fretboard. Yes, and yes. Looks very good, doesn't fill the pore, and the pores, I really like the open pores on Wenge that's cut in that particular orientation, and also because of those pores, it penetrates really well. Now, the one thing you need to be aware of is put the guitar finishing oil on, leave it to cure, rub it off, and then stay in the room, because it wants to be naughty. It wants to, it'll sit in those pores until you think everything's cured and it's great and you can go away and watch some TV or something, you know, play a little bit of Rocket League, and then it pops through the really open pores and you'll end up with little bubbles on the top of your fretboard, which mean that you need to then go with wet and dry sandpaper or something like that and sand it all back because it's cured and a bubbly kind of a look. So there we go. Gabor says, hello Ben, is there a better way to remove lacquer than sanding? Yes, fire. Fire, baby, all the way. If not fire, heat. So a heat gun on most lacquers, most varnishes at least, will, if you're lucky, you'll heat it up and you'll be able to, using a palette knife, just slip the entire top of the varnish off. It does vary with, well, manufacturers and all that jazz, but I would suggest that that is the way to go, as much as you can. JS Trucking Guitar says, would you rather have Barks, B-A-R-Q-S, A and W, or homemade root beer? I do not know what A and W is, nor do I know what Barks are, so homemade root beer it is. Elucidate me, people. Adam to Remember says, we need a CRT monitor to really appreciate the Sustainiac website. Crikey. Lisa, you cannot compare my website to that website. Mine is a little bit clunky, but I have a billion products on there. But anyway. Now. Tahoe Mike is inspired by yesterday's field trip in the video. I really enjoyed that. I thought, so I was particularly worried that that video was going to be boring as all hell, because it was mainly lacquering and spraying and all that, and there wasn't all that much actual working. And I thought, oh, I'll get the GoPro out and go for a bit of a drive in that. And it actually, in the end, I've just watched the video this afternoon. I really enjoyed it myself, so there we go. Luther for Build says, can I use that reply you just gave me in my video when I finish the FB? Absolutely, of course. It's public and all good. Question from Electric Lady Guitars, Devon, UK. Do you sell or supply calipers and dividers for measuring the thickness of carved tops in progress? Warm regards, Eddie. Not at the moment, but sometimes they come through vintagetoolshop.com. Thickness. Calipers. For tops. But there is a way. I've had a design in the back of my head for like 15 years that we could make and produce, and we should. So there we go. Alfred Kane says, would Crimson consider building guitar amps? I have considered it over time. It is way out of our comfort zone. Now, that being said, we are very much enamored with the idea. By we, I say I am very enamored with the idea of doing kit amps, and at the very least adding that to the range of things that we sell. We do very well with the little jam jar amps. There's one over here. Yeah, the jam jar amps are just great little things. Focus. And we sell these kits that you can put into anything you really fancy putting it into, to be honest. And I would like to go and actually do, you know, micro sort of 5-watt amp kits and things like that. It could be fun. Could be fun. A Very Dead Horse says, if you were to build gadgets and gimmicks guitar, if you were to build a gadgets and gimmicks guitar, what would you put in it? I want to build a silly guitar to inspire me. Gadgets and gimmicks. Pretty much everything I build, isn't it? Okay, so in the past I have put in various effects pedals and boost EQ things and all of that. Now, to have something that would be actually useful, I would go and do what many bass players do and have a full active EQ system. I don't know why we don't do that in guitars. A full active EQ system, a proper acoustic piezo system, acoustophonic is where we're all thinking at this moment, of course. a nice booster circuit, add 20 decibels or something, solo circuit. The problem with all of these things is that you're playing away, you've got your, you're about to hit your solo, and then you need to stop playing in order to find the switch and push the button to do the thing that you need to do, where you've got a perfectly good foot. Feet evolved so that we could use foot switches while still playing. Fight me in the comments. So it would have to be gadgets and gimmicks that don't really affect the playing in any way. Of course, I would have the boost switch on all the time. So yeah, there is that. Flamethrower. Flamethrower out one side, smoke machine out the other. That'd be pretty cool. That really would be fun. Alrighty. Tahoe Mike says, would you rather learn to play left-handed on an unrestrung inverted righty guitar, or learn to drive stick shift wrong-handed in an opposite side drive car driving on the wrong? The latter. Because I already drive stick shift anyway, because we're in the UK and most vehicles are stick rather than automatic. Although I have had an automatic car in the past and it was really great. There was just nothing to do. Drive. Hey. So definitely the latter. I'm struggling enough to learning how to play, still normally. No JS trucking. I haven't been on. I haven't checked out your other videos yet. I do not spend very much time looking at anybody's anything on YouTube. Vids. But I will try and check it out. Because you've got driving in there as well, and dash cam footage, which is my new thing as well. It's all fun and games. Funny this. This question actually came before the last one. Ben, would you ever do a how to play guitar? Absolutely not, because I am at best a mediocre player. I very much want to be better. I am currently inspired to be better. I finally spent way too much money on a Kemper profiler because I've got great guitars, but when I play, it's always unamplified, because the only time I get to play is after the little sproglets are all asleep and I can't wake them up. And now at no volume, I can have the headphones in the profiler and sound like I'm blasting through a freaking Marshall stack or whatever I want. It's mind-blowingly cool. Like, wow. Jaybird Custom says, how would you handle having an idea for a build but not having the funds for the materials to try it out? I've got that exact problem, except it's not funds, although time is money and therefore money is time and it is funds. I don't have the time to do 90% of what I want to do. And there's so many projects to do, but I can't. Look, you are me 20 years ago. I started building guitars. Hell, I went bankrupt. I got evicted from the house we were living in because I couldn't pay the rent, because just everything went to shit. It went to shit. So, literal eviction. Turned out all right in the end. It really did. But yeah, in that decade, I couldn't build even though I was building guitars, I ended up building for customers. And it was a case of, okay, fine, there we go. I've just figured out what I did. I'd have an idea and I'd find a customer who wanted a guitar and I would convince them to order what I had in my head. And it worked out very well for me. I got to build the fun stuff. I'm sure some people end up with guitars that they didn't really want, and I think morally, looking back, I was probably wrong, but that's how I dealt with that situation. Wow, I actually feel like an asshole right now. Damn. Okay. Rob Tootle just got home after a soggy day photographing a bunch of blokes playing soldiers. That sounds actually great fun. That really, really, really sounds awesome. Yeah. I did a naughty. I did a naughty today. I did a very naughty today, actually. I was left unsupervised. I had my computer, and I now need to do a completely different guitar build and raffle it off because I kind of went and bought a Canon R5, and I shouldn't have. There's going to be some very pretty photographs and 8K video coming out at some point. The amount of people talking about the squirrels being in the wrong place. Okay. Okay. Ooh, Sweet Tea says the best liquid compound on the planet is Fairclough G360, made in the UK. Expensive but super high quality. Okay. Fairclough G360 polishing compound. All right, well, thank you very much for that. I shall check it out. Okay, let's go back down to the bottom because I'm running out of queries, and if we don't have any questions, we can't we can't keep on going on. Alrighty. Frugal Fixer says Tesla valve in guitar hooked to propane with igniter. Pretty much, I'd like to do it very, very safely, and I am not. Oh my gosh, there's a UK YouTuber whose name I've just forgotten, who I love, and he did a fire guitar at some point. JS Trucking says, I think you'll enjoy the dashcam footage from the guitar design build video more than the intro and the fail complication. Compilation. I can't see that word without thinking complication for some reason. Mr. Waffle says, I hate that saying, time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, you don't get more time. That's a very good point. That is a very good point. John Dubé says, being in Canada driving a British car was not a big deal. Done it several times. I think it's like weather. You go off on holiday and it takes a couple of days for you to get used to acclimatise to whatever the weather is. And then you come back home and it's cold and wet, and for the first couple of days you're like, oh my god, how can I live this? And then it's just normal and your body's getting used to it. A couple of hours driving in a car, the first couple of hours is probably quite scary, but you know, using the clutch with the stick with the other hand, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. Okay. Oof. Dusty Dark Horse says, it's fine, Ben, I can't play at all. I just got surgery on my left wrist, so hopefully once it's healed, I'll finally be able to learn. Crikey, yeah. Good luck with that. Shock the Fox, how you doing? I really do enjoy seeing your builds come through. I see you generally pop up on Instagram. The very rare times I'm actually on Instagram, always seem to see what you're doing. So there we go. How difficult is it to bend Gaboon vipers? Gaboon ebony. A Gaboon viper you don't want to bend. They're giant snakes. Like, freaking insane. How difficult is it to bend Gaboon ebony? What temperature and optimal thickness? I would use the word thinness. I have never tried to bend ebony for sides. And honestly, I'm not sure I would do it. If I had to do it, I wouldn't do it with heat and steam. I wouldn't do it traditionally. I would say 1.5 millimeters thick, maybe 2 on the outside. Okay, super thin. If you're going to use water, then make sure you've got enough to do it 2 or maybe even 3 times. I would put it in a PVC pipe with steam being fed into the pipe, and I would leave it in there for a good hour or 2 and see maybe if it works. And even then, I would design the guitar so that there aren't any curves at all. Just make it into a box. No, your lower horn sort of thing, I would design that kind of like a breedlove cutaway. What is that cutaway called? Because it would just be hugely problematic. Okay, so that's one thing. The other is to, and this could get you kicked out of your house and home. So yeah, make sure you do this outside. But the same process, a PVC pipe with the ends all shut up, etc., and a hose going to it. But instead of steam going through the hose, you use ammonia fumes. And flooding ammonia fumes onto wood, for most woods, not all, but most woods, basically turns that wood into jelly. It's amazing. You can take a Purple Heart or something like that and twist it around your finger. Smells nasty, but, and I haven't done this, but I've seen it done. And that is, if I had to build, to bend ebony, that's what I would do. Now, the only time I have bent ebony before, probably was Gaboon ebony actually, was building Baroque instruments where you have a pear wood fretboard and then you put a 1.5 millimeter thick ebony facer on the top of it. And in that case, all we did was we wet the one side and it curved itself. So, and there we go. But that's not the sort of curving you're talking about. Okay. Joe Thornhill says, Cream Egg! Hi Ben. I know I'm 3 days late, but why not put the various grits of 3M on the various lengths of leveling beams? Must be cheaper than a big chunk of granite, marble or float glass. Honestly, no. So I've got a, just for float glass, yes, cheaper than the granite, etc. Those lapping blocks are not, they are not inexpensive. Yeah, that's right. But float glass is incredibly cheap. So my Scary Sharp system, I've got a piece of glass about that big, 8 millimeters thick. It should be 10 really, but yeah, it works fine. JS Trucking says, would you rather have an ebony fretboard or curly maple? So those are the only 2 choices. Ebony. And that's because I'm lazy. With curly maple, I would have to varnish it and go through that whole process. And personally, I prefer the look and feel of an oiled ebony fretboard. I wouldn't not build one like, I wouldn't refuse a build with a curly maple fretboard, absolutely not. In fact, I haven't done one, I really should. But yeah, given the choice, definitely that. Luther for Build says, can you submerge it in ammonia, or do you need the fumes? I'm greatly interested in as well. I've only seen it done with the fumes, but yeah, I think if you submerge it in ammonia, it will always smell of ammonia, which wouldn't be great. Tony Homewood said, would Crimson consider building a guitar or kit inspired by a Red Special? It's always been my dream guitar, but seeing your take on the formula would be incredibly exciting. I wouldn't. I think it's a very, very, very actively protected design, and we really... I think when building something like the Red Special, you either build a Red Special or it's just a guitar. Pretty much. And if I was going to do it, I'd want to do it properly. So, okay, hold on. Crikey. The world is getting confusing, I tell you. Okay, the aforementioned camera is on its way. No, I picked up my phone for a reason. Watch, see, I get distracted. It's most annoying. Okay, SC Guitar says, how would you go about vacuum bag gluing on a veneer over a very contoured guitar top without it splitting? For example, imagine a big arm contour on both sides of the body. Would you recommend maybe pre-bending the sheet with steam or maybe scoring the veneer sheet on the glue side at the same angle as the contours? Okay, and Creever then said, many manufacturers cut slots on the back side of the top above the arm bevel. It makes bending easier on those parts. That's when you're talking about a 5 or a 6 millimeter thick piece of wood. I think Stephen is talking about a veneer, which is much more problematic. So 335s are made out of veneers, and it's steam pressed using a great big heated thing that puts it down and creates that shape, and it pulls the wood in places and slightly stretches it out in others, I'm sure. That's the only way to do it really with a veneer, and that is to flood it with hot water over some time, and then without any glue you clamp it to the former, i.e. what I would do is, now that I think about it, and I'm completely extemporizing here, I would take my Les Paul shape, for example, I would cover that with multiple layers of even cling wrap, saran wrap, I think you guys call it in the colonies in America, and I would then put my hot, wet veneer on and then clamp that down using the vacuum press, etc. The problem is the vacuum press isn't going to allow it to dry, ever, so you'll have to find some other way of clamping it down. It's not easy. It's not easy. Now, I tried to do it exactly that with a Les Paul manually without steam, and what I ended up doing was in the curves I would cut along the grain and then the veneer slid over itself. It was not pretty. It was terrible. Not a good idea. Sweet Tea Guitar says he's off to the shop to carve the neck for the giveaway build. Have an awesome night. Peace and love. You too. Enjoy. And yeah, thank you for all the super chats this evening, Sweet Tea. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with that build. Have a good one. Tahoe Mike says, 40 years driving stick. I watched you do it backwards in the video and realised there was no way I'd get used to it. I wasn't even thinking about... well, yeah. It's just a weird one, isn't it? Carl Price says, I've had this thought of a jam jar style amp going to a small laptop cell phone type speakers in a guitar. Have you ever considered a system like that? Flip a switch and you have a small personal amp. Yeah, I mean, you could build the jam jar amp directly into a guitar, no worries. It does not sound great. It's yeah, there are better ways to with a little bit more money and a slightly bigger speaker, you could make it sound okay. But again, we have amps for a reason. Now, if you wanted a little travel guitar, people have done it. People have built little speakers into travel guitars all the time. And they're pretty cool in their way. So, yeah. The Real Wonky Dog. I think I'm going to put you in a timeout. Would you rather live without masking tape or super glue? Moving swiftly on. Vax Headroom says, if I built a Vulcan Lyre... I'm not going to answer the last question. If I built a Vulcan Lyre from Star Trek with built-in custom electronics, sustainer, flanger, etc., full hand build, would that qualify for GGBO? Absolutely. Abso-frickin-lutely. GGBO has a few extra categories this year. And one of those categories is going to be essentially acoustic instrument and pretty much anything else. So if you were to build that would be in that category. If you were to build an acoustic guitar, it would be in that category. If you were to build, I don't know, a hurdy-gurdy, that's where it would be. Now, there aren't going to be huge amounts of people competing in that category, so technically it means the odds of winning are going to be more, but the prizes are also not going to be quite as cool. I don't know. Okay, so I said all of that. A Vulcan Lyre from Star Trek with built-in custom electronics. I think that would class as an electric guitar. So yeah, no, I think that Vulcan Lyre. Vulcan Lyre. Vulcan Lyre. Come on, people. Vulcan Lyre for sale? No, yeah. The Vulcan Lute, Vulcan Lyre, Lyret, 12-string musical instrument, tuned on a diatonic scale and noted to be very soothing. That would be in the acoustic instrument category and would be supremely cool. So yeah, well, now that you've said it, you have to do it. Absolutely. Bill says, didn't you put a jam jar amp kit into an old drill once? Yeah, I did. I have another one over there to do the same thing too, just for fun. It's up in the house. I love it. I don't plug into it very often, but I do love it. Now, the Gentagon says, Bun! One big historical reason for not having preamps inside guitars, as opposed to basses, is that they alter the impedance of the output, which can really interfere with a lot of drive or fuzz pedals. Frickin' hell. I have never heard that before. That's incredibly good to know. I'm going to have to photograph that because I will forget. Or at least I'll remember that I knew something that was an actual reason, and I won't be able to remember what the reason was, and it'll be an utterly infuriating thing. Okay. Matt Lang says it would be great to produce just kit cabs using the CNC and laser cutter. Well, exactly, that's the thought. So we could do the cabs and move from there. So absolutely. Jules sent an email to Stream at Crimson. I will check that out on Tuesday. Okay, George Davis says, speaking of lacquer, of US lacquer, why don't builders use acrylic lacquer instead of nitro? It doesn't yellow, won't crack, and is easy to spray and buff. I think that acrylic lacquer has got a bad rap. Now, funnily enough, Wednesday and Thursday this week, I have got a company coming down to train us and to try and sell us on a few new products, including they're trying to get us to start using acrylic lacquer exclusively at Crimson Guitars, or in the main on most of our guitars. So ask me the same question next week, and I may have an answer for you. But I think it's just that early acrylic lacquers really did suck. Sort of milky, you get a milky finish, and people don't like that. Okay, so apparently those were all root beer brands earlier. I have no idea on the other ones, so I just go for the homemade or whatever you suggest. Joe Black says root beer, ew, cream soda, yay. I used to drink cream soda a lot actually, but homemade. Could be terrible, but could be great. Tornelli Guitars, formerly Cool Wood, Italy, says, hi all, long time since I've been here. Did I miss any GGBO news? A little bit, although I think you said that before. So yeah, GGBO's got a few more categories. I am going to be making the main announcement within the next week, though. I'm at the very least filming the video and getting that out. I finally am happy with what we've got going on. It's going to be amazing. And the main thing is that it's going to start, yeah, I'll leave it at that. William De Silva says, what kind of walnut oil is good to use? And then the thing finished. As a finishing oil, is there something I should avoid? All walnut oil should be avoided. In my opinion, I think, and I could be wrong, I think that walnut oil is a non-drying oil, okay? Much like olive oil. And if you apply it to your wood and then leave the guitar hanging for 6 months, I think that basically the oil starts rotting because it doesn't actually cure. You might wipe the excess off, but it'll still retain some of its sort of oiliness, basically. Whereas guitar finishing oil or linseed oil and things like that, boiled linseed oil at the very least, they are drying oils, and you'll end up with a film finish. So, now, did I say I may be wrong? If I am, let me know. JS Trucking and Guitar says, well, my homemade root beer is keto friendly, but doesn't taste keto. Okay. That sounds like a diet to me. I've never been on a diet in my life. Okay, Sweetie Guitar says, Ben, thin oil on a fretboard before the frets go? No, I like to oil the fretboard one coat before the frets go in. Do you see a problem with that? I clean the slots before I fret it. Okay, now I used to do that. I really did used to do that, and I'm aware that you're not actually now listening, which, sorry. I used to oil the whole fretboard, buff the poop out of it, apply the oil with 2,500 grit wet and dry paper, and get a really nice gloss going, and then install frets. And 9 times out of 10 it worked fine, but every now and then the fret slots would just, the glue that I put in to fill the fret slots would just not take it, and it just wouldn't work. So no, I tend to avoid that. Okay, come on then. I'm running low on energy, people, so if there are any more questions, hit me up and we will go from there. Mr. Waffle says Ben.exe has failed. This is very true, I have. Luther for Build says, if it doesn't work round 3, can you just make guitar making meme channel? I want an SC t-shirt. I don't know what you guys are talking about there. Lucent Custom Guitar says, so far the only finish I've found works nicely on guitar stand foam is 2K or oil-based polyurethane. Any others? I've never tried that. Yes, any neck can be copied in CNC. This is from Redhead17. Some people I see online say that this or that guitar has a great neck, usually vintage, but could any neck be copied in CNC? Absolutely, you can't patent a neck. You can, but only if it's non-standard. So vintage Fender C or whatever is ubiquitous. Nobody would ever try and patent that, and if they did, they would lose in court. The real wonky dog says, no, you have to answer super glue or masking tape. Which would I rather keep? That's a very difficult question. You're a mean, mean person. I would keep superglue because I can find other things to that is similar to masking tape that could be used. I think that brown packing tape could potentially do the same thing as the masking tape and superglue trick. Wow. Okay. JS Trucking Guitars. I should have a WhatsApp thing. Oh, okay. The latter. Which location would I rather have in the background in a future video? Beautiful stone, etc. I'm in England. I see lots of green around, so yeah, I'd go for the stony bluffs and beautifulness. Okay. Matt Lang says, I've been using a NUX Mighty amp for headphone playing my bass. Wife still complains about the noise when I play slap. Yes, I mean, yeah, no comment. There is a time for slap bass, and it is not late in the evening, even if you are playing through headphones. Okay. SC Guitar says, is there a category for people who have broken their last 2 builds? Haha. Yes, I think at the very least, if you compete again, which you will, you should get a prize for persistence. A Very Dead Horse says, have you ever tried to copy a neck carve on something you like to reshape a neck you don't? I want to make my Les Paul neck have a Wolfgang profile. I have done. I have reshaped many a neck, but you have to have one that has got enough material to work with. And yeah, it's relatively straightforward. Just yeah, it's relatively straightforward. The finishing is the other thing. So you'd be surprised how much the finish on a neck affects how it feels to you. Crikey, I can't believe I'm this tired. Okay, anyway, James Trucking says, lol, but it wasn't for the greenery, it was for the bridge in the background. No, I still prefer the stone. I absolutely do. But yeah, you do you, really. Boot says, is that a crimson hoodie? Nice, it's red, but not actively a Crimson Guitars hoodie. I just happen to be wearing it today. Although that being said, we really should do, yeah, We should do some crimson hoodies. I don't know, what's more dodgy looking, the head tattoos or me walking around town in a hoodie? Probably this. Okay, Matt Lang says he's just watched a video on ammonia fuming hardwood. Complicated setup, but really effective on hardwoods. Yeah, I think I have to do that. Fabian says, any tips on building an acoustic guitar out of Purple Heart with an Adirondack spruce top? Good idea or not? Price isn't an issue, or rather use Purdue. I would rather use Purdue. Purdue acts like a little bit of a harder mahogany, although obviously it won't stay red. But then again, neither will Purple Heart stay purple. Purple Heart tends to be very brittle. So while you would be able to bend it, traditionally, over time, it wouldn't be fun to do. So I would rather go Purdue. But if you want to stick with Purple Heart, then do the whole aforementioned ammonia fume bending thing, because that'll be cool. The Gentagon has come in with a super chat and said, GGBO category for people who have never built a guitar before. Well, that's the thing. So a lot of the people that entered last year and the year before were actually basically professional guitar builders. And that put people like you at a disadvantage. I don't... If enough people ask for it, then yeah, why not? See? I thought I had this sorted. First guitar build category. I will consider it. I will consider it. We'll go from there. Okay. George Davis says, what about cherry for a fretboard? Cherry is absolutely fine. It's a beautiful wood. It's kind of like pear, plum, and apple. It makes a very good fretboard, in my opinion. Just use an oil finish and go for it. Uriel Sage says, I also ordered a drill press planer to thickness necks finally. Thicknessing via bandsaw and sanding is just too dusty. Anyone else use one? I used one once for about 15 seconds, scared the crap out of me, and I sent it back. Also, it shits shavings and dust everywhere. Seriously, be incredibly careful. That, I don't actually think that you could probably legally sell that in the UK. It is so dangerous. Jay's Tracking Guitar says, wasn't the Invitational supposed to be for the professional and the main competition for the first-time builders? No, the Invitational is for YouTubers and people with a social media presence. Basically, it was to inspire people to build and get as many views as possible, basically. Jimmy DeResta is not a professional guitar builder. He's a professional YouTuber. Tamar has built a few instruments and had done before, but again, not very many. So no, not really. One, two, three. Loy, hi Ben. One general or stupid, because no right answer question, what fret sizes do you recommend for an electric guitar? Yes, I'm always planning on refretting my Ibanez. I tend to go for medium jumbo, pretty much across the board. It tends not to offend anybody. Personally, I do like the feel of small frets, but yeah, medium jumbo works for most people. Okay. Alrighty. I'm going to start thinking about calling it a night. Give me a question or two if you've got it, and then, yeah, we're definitely coming to it. Gentagon says, I have my workshop ready so that I can build guitars. So I figure a vlog of it will be hilarity, having never made one before. Fantastic. Are you going to do that for GGBO? The noob category goes to... Redhead17 says, how do you prove you've never built a guitar before? That is a good point. That is a good point. Okay, yeah, it's just one of those things. I think the main category is going to be for hobbyist builders. And yeah, we'll see. That being said, there will be a pro category, and I'm very interested in seeing how that develops. Chicks Guitars is inspiring, I agree. Okay. Can you make copper leafing so durable that it can be applied on the arm bevel area without being rubbed off? Yes, but you do need to varnish over it. A melamine lacquer would work perfectly on that. The acrylic varnish would also work perfectly. The wipe-on guitar finishing lacquer would work very, very well on that. But yeah, it's all about the finish more than anything else. Okay. Nick Guitar says, have you ever used concave gouges? The edges are furthest from the handle. Ken Parker has a 4-part video on modifying a regular one. No. Ben, have you got any experience with Ipe wood or Masaraduba for fretboard? Both are decking hard, dense wood and tap rings unbelievably. It would work absolutely fine. It's just sometimes they have chemicals in them, so aren't great to use. And they're fairly hard because they're naturally waxy, I think. Ipe is at least. But yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't use it. Okay. Alrighty. Uriel Sage says, ironically, the brand name for the drill press planer is called Safe T Planer. I know. That was the one that I had, and I found that ironic as well. It is... I think that there is a technique to it, of course, and a lot of people swear by them, but no thank you. Alrighty. Okay, I'm going to say goodnight. Look, you guys are fantastic as ever, and I seriously appreciate your support and the fact that you are all here. 150 people is amazing. We are all here to learn how to play guitar, build guitars. And yeah, there were a couple of things here that I learned, and I constantly do. Having to think about stuff. There we go, there's another question from Jules. Having to think about my answers makes me reconsider stuff that I thought I knew beforehand. Jules has come in and said, hey Ben, in what order do I have to use your fret erasers? And is there a trick? The trick is just to keep on going. Coarse, medium, fine, and super fine is the order. Coarse, medium, then fine, and then super fine for your final polish. But if you jump ahead too far, then you're going to still have scratches from your medium, for example, when you're at your superfine. So just spend enough time on each one and go for it. Alrighty, there we go. Thank you very much, everybody. You rule. I will catch you on the flip side tomorrow at 11 a.m. UK time. I will be starting the next stage of the Bobber Fret build on the main channel, and I'm seriously looking forward to it. So I will be coffeed up, and yeah, and on it. See you soon. Goodbye.